All right, I'm live. Would you believe me if I told you that I'm late because of tech issues? If you're watching this not live, then look below you. There'll be little markers when I start. We're going to start. This is part two, reading the entire Gobekli Tepe site management plan on page 37. Hopefully, finish it. I just realized I have to be on 5 till midnight in time zone shift, 3 hours and 13 minutes. So we're going to hang out here for a little bit, let people come in. Not a lot of people seem interested in this, but I got to see this through anyway, because then when I'm arguing about Gobekli Tepe, I can say I read the entire thing live on YouTube, so you know that I checked. Yeah, this is one of those antics that only I get excited about. That's possible. There's a lot of those, but every once in a while I'm right, and I got something. So that's what we're doing. We're reading it. We read it before. We're gonna read it now. Say hi if you're in the chat. We'll start in about 10 minutes. To let people get in. I need to post about it on other socials. Finishing reading the Gobekli Tepe site management plan. Live on say YT. I think YouTube they mark it down so that we know what it says. I just put my thumbnail on that. Link below. Oh, this is going to be great. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Glad I committed to this. Okay. How's my audio? Can someone tell me how my audio is? I don't know how it is. This is not my normal thing, my normal microphone and audio interface. It is my normal microphone, not my normal audio interface. I'm fully signed up and strapped in for the next 2 hours. Fantastic. I appreciate that. This is going to get really dry here, folks, but this is what real archaeology is. Even though Flint Dibble doesn't know what he's talking about. Flint Dibble has to get his freaking greasy little palms into everything. So he's been talking about this and defended the olive trees on Gobekli Tepe, even though there are older documents. That's why it's irresponsible. Like I know some people get annoyed that I talked so much about Flint Dibble, um, even though I don't feel like I do it that often. And of course, when Dibble is likely to be stalking this stuff and see that and be like, "Oh my god, I'm going to take that one clip. I feel like I talk about Flint Dibble too much," and take it to be, "See, it's evidence. Even he knows he's harassing me." Guy is a clown who can't talk about this stuff. But him and others like him, like they want to share real archaeology, right? They want to share these sites. They want to share the real archaeological theory of conservation and stuff. And he when what Flint Dibble said about these archae of the trees, I'll show you what he said to use that as an example. Most archaeological sites around the world have trees planted on them with roots. I've visited hundreds of sites and I struggle to think of more than a few without trees, and those are in caves or in the desert. When excavating in the Mediterranean sun under a nearby tree is where we eat our lunch, thankful for the shade. Okay, that has nothing to do with conservation. Congratulations, you have shade. You're so grateful for the shade. More importantly, tree roots are really good at preventing erosion to ensure that archaeology is protected from the elements. Okay, so the massive issue that I have with this is that Flint Dibble is talking generally about a specific situation. So like every one of those sites, sometimes the trees are fine. They're fine where they are. But that's not always the case. They absolutely do. It's not deniable that in archaeology they do and can damage sites. And we're talking about a specific site here. So Flint Dibble is using this generalization and using his authority to defend these olive trees at Gobekli Tepe. And it's like he wants this to be real. He wants this to be real because he's arguing against Jimmy Corsetti. But if Flint Dibble had read the site documents, like the documents that I've been reading when I've been going through here, he would see that the trees were explicitly identified as a problem. And in that specific case, they were identified as having to be removed like in 2016, which was 8 years before this tweet. So it was a specific situation where the trees were identified as a problem. We don't know how much of a problem, but there was clearly the archaeologists decided that they needed to be removed. And yet Flint Dibble, without the knowledge of this specific site, he argues against this idea that they're harmful, even though he's not familiar with the specifics. And he actually was arguing against the archaeologists who had said that they need to be removed, who are the experts in the actual site. It's like he'd rather win than share the real archaeology. Like, I'm here reading the whole site management plan, so we know everything that's in it. And I'm going to give you my best interpretation of certain things when jargon comes up. But I will not, like, ever manipulate the evidence that I'm sharing or the context that I'm sharing in order to prove a specific ideological point. The point should always ultimately be to share good information. And if you're explicitly an anthropology creator like myself and like Flint, then that should always and has to be the priority above all of these other petty squabbles. The content is what is important. I don't know, dude. Flint just seems like a bad person, like a legitimately bad person. I don't say that lightly. He's not going to debate me. He says mean things all the time. I say mean things about him too, but not as rough as he says. He's just an unpleasant dude. So we're gonna let some people trickle in. I'm gonna read this. Oh, and another one. These are for. I'm gonna come up with a video. This guy was on the team that wrote the site management plan. Like, this is really irresponsible to me because they stand in areas with more than 1 meter of rubble above archaeological structures. The roots are preventing erosion, thus in fact protecting the archaeology. Like, this guy's name is on the Gobekli Tepe site management plan. And this thing here, like what he's saying, if this were a part of the plan, was that olive trees preventing erosion, that is something that should have been in the management plan. It would be a factor. I mean, we're going to read the whole thing, so if you hang out here and listen, you'll know if this comes up. But remember this, because as far as I know, this is not written in the management plan. So and maybe it just wasn't, but I don't remember if the trees themselves are mentioned in the management plan, but they're mentioned in related documents from around that time, only ever as having to be removed. So if he's saying this, I don't know why he's saying this besides for it to be attacking Jimmy, because he's an author on that management plan. If he has this opinion, he should have put this in the management plan. I don't know if maybe it was a formality, maybe he wasn't actually involved because there's not a lot of names on there, but this is that it's specific sites. Specific sites have different characteristics. Sometimes tree roots can help prevent erosion. Sometimes they can be damaging, and it's not a general thing when we're talking about a specific site. I hope I hammered in that point enough. Beckley Tepe site management plan. Going to page 37. Wait, 37, right? Was it 27? No, this was right. 37. Couple minutes. I am just going to use the restroom and then we can start. So hang out. No, I can't stop saying Gobekli Tepe. I don't even know how to pronounce it. If you have to hear it one more time, I'll lose it. Well, we're reading a long document that says it a lot. So, I mean, I don't want you to leave, but this probably isn't the place for that. Okay, I'll be right back. All right. If you're on Twitter, come to YouTube or don't. I'm not your dad. Oh, I want to leave the door open enough for the cat to get in. Kitty. Oh, I can put a teleprompter in here. I'm looking for something. I'm just bad at this, man. I don't even have my normal setup. My normal setup is so automated, like everything's in the right place, and they're like buttons because I just like next step, and then it's like squirrel brain. I guess cat brain. I was thinking cats, and now I'm distracting myself thinking about the cats. What the hell was I doing, guys? Oh, Twitter. Got to post on Twitter. Oh, I already was. And then I got distracted ranting about that, but it was an important rant. Here we go. Cool. We're all good. Got that. Going to open the door, and then we're going to start reading from page 37. Okay, the tweet posted, and then it stayed in the drafts. That ain't right. That ain't right. But it posted, so we're good. That's all that matters. Okay. All right, sweet. We get a timestamp. I have tweets. I'm going to be doing a long form video on this. We're going to start on page 37 at the time of 12:35. Okay, we're going to start reading. We are on chapter 2. This is the Gobekli Tepe Site Management Plan, part 1. Is in another video, which should be obvious, has pretty much the same thumbnail. Okay. Artifacts found on site stem from the plateau as well as the excavation of the tell. There is a large amount of iconographic material of an exceptional artistic quality, occasionally depicting humans, but mainly animals. These take the forms of fragments of sculptures, such as the so-called totem pole found in 2009 at the southern slope of Gobekli Tepe, now in the Sanliurfa Museum. Most frequent finds include different stoneworking tools, worked limestone slabs, and oval-shaped basalt mortars. The interpretation of other artifact types remains obscure, such as large limestone rings with diameters of 0.5 to 1 meter, or the so-called porthole stones, which might have played a role in accessing the enclosures. It's hard for me to read sometimes because this is in British English, and I just far too free for that. Sorry. All archaeological evidence indicates that Göbekli Tepe was a central meeting place within the region of Upper Mesopotamia at which groups of complex hunter-foragers would have gathered. These gatherings were most probably connected with rituals and feasting activities. Göbekli Tepe is comprised primarily of architecture, pointing to its special function in terms of public or ceremonial usage. Domestic building types and elements like fireplaces or hearths, which would suggest a use as a settlement, have only recently become visible. That's a highlight. Oops. Remarkably, these features and finds infer the presence of contemporaneous domestic and/or workshops at the site. The supra-regional, very different, multi-regional, the supranatural, oh my God, the supra-regional significance of Göbekli Tepe is reflected in the recurrence of material culture with similar iconography, such as the T-shaped pillars or decorated objects at other prehistoric sites in a radius of approximately 200 kilometers around the site, including Sefer Tepe and Karahan in Turkey, and Jerf el Amar, Tel Karamal, and Tel Aber, 3 in Syria. Accordingly, these sites may have belonged to a common Neolithic cultic community. Considering the context of Gobekli Tepe within the landscape, its prominent location could point to an elevated position within a supra-regional network of early Neolithic sites. Is my audio okay? Its topographical Its topographical position on top of the plateau makes it a visible landmark from afar, and its location also affords extensive views over the surrounding plains. Additionally, its setting, in terms of archaeology, was probably a major factor in the choice of the site, located at the northern periphery of the Fertile Crescent. So, the Fertile Crescent being very important to what was thought to be the beginning of civilization, but now it's being seen that rather than the Sumerians and the Assyrians and all those guys, that depending on what country you were in and went to school in, you might have learned various amounts about them. I know in America, although every state is different, we teach quite a bit about the Sumerians. In my state, it's during middle school. But the Euphrates and the Tigris, this would be an important location. It's near the Euphrates, but it has another water source. So, you can imagine somebody being near the Euphrates, traveling for some reason to Gobekli Tepe, which is near this water source. I mean, this is complete speculation on my part, but it definitely, like, just looking at this map and the landscape, it seems. Oh, and at the meeting place of this, aurochs, red deer, and wild boar, goitered gazelle, Syrian wild ass. So this is when they're all mixed in. So it's at kind of the zenith of all of these different locations. Maybe gazelle hunting grounds. I don't know if there's evidence at Gobekli Tepe of them slaughtering gazelles. They might be able to tell by the residue on blades, the archaeologists, what they were used for, or potentially you could have a bone of a specific animal if it can be identified. Generally, femurs are good for that, but it can depend on the animal. Um, if they have marks on them consistent with slaughtering, and you could also tell from that, like the level of precision that the knife used has, because knives, when an animal or a human is alive, through osteological analysis of the bones, they can tell when a when a bone was broken, like, right before they died, like it was broken fresh and then they died, or they can tell if the bone was dried for a while, and then was broken by maybe a piece of machinery or an animal, or they can tell if the bone was broken maybe years before or weeks before and healed. They have to estimate a little bit, of course, but there's a lot of good information in the orientation, the size, the brittleness of all these other factors into osteological analysis of bones. But let's continue. The immediate vicinity of the site features the habitats of various wild plant species, including later domesticated wild einkorn, emmer, and barley. Emmer is like a wheat, I think. However, at the time of Gobekli Tepe, only the wild progenitors were being cultivated. Interesting. These plants would only become domesticated in the course of the next centuries. Doesn't that heavily line up with Graham Hancock's idea? Doesn't that hilariously line up with Graham Hancock's idea? The immediate vicinity of the site features the habitats of various wild plant species, including later domesticated wild einkorn, emmer, and barley. However, at the time of Gobekli Tepe, only the wild progenitors were being cultivated. These plants would only become domesticated in the course of the next centuries. Does Graham Hancock know about this? So I mean, I gotta post this on Twitter. Sorry. So the Gobekli Tepe here. We're gonna tweet live. This is that important. So the Tepe site management plan says that at the time of Gobekli Tepe, only the wild pre-domestic uh, plants existed in the area, but that they were domesticated over the next centuries. Doesn't this directly support? Is that what is Graham Hancock's name on? There it is. Doesn't this support Graham Hancock's idea of a culture um, spreading the idea of agriculture? And didn't he come up with that before we knew this? Okay, going back. Sorry. Going back. Had to tweet that. Had to, I got to be my bulldog for my boy. Graham Hancock is a wonderful man. He's far too nice for the crap he takes. I don't know if he's right. I don't know. Whenever I've talked about it, I've said I don't know. I don't think Flint Dibble did not disprove him, but I don't think there's enough evidence to say that it's true. But regardless, Graham Hancock is a nice man. He's done nothing wrong, and Flint Dibble is very mean. So let's keep going. That's crazy. That is crazy. Sweet. Within a close radius around Gobekli Tepe, there was also a wide variety of wild animals to be found, their geographic distribution overlapping in this area. This is indicated by analyses of faunal remains, that just means remains of animals, of the wildlife exploited by the prehistoric hunters. In summary, the area around the site was home to different plants and animals, some of which would later be domesticated in the course of the Neolithization process. As such, this region is quite rightly regarded as a core zone of southwestern Asian Neolithization. So this is a core zone where the culture of the Neolithic, which is the new Stone Age as opposed to the Paleolithic, where that culture started to spread from. And that's associated with this somewhat more complex. They're moving into more complex hunter-gatherers, I think. I don't think it becomes like there's a classical, it's not as used as much anymore, but I still like it, of like hunter gatherers, and then there's bands and tribes and chiefdoms, and then like two levels of states. People break it down different ways, but Neolithization is this new technology being spread before we get into the classical age in the future. But Göbekli Tepe is basically rewriting a lot of the specifics on this. Not as much as people might think, because it's still in the area of the Fertile Crescent, and it is, technology that is earlier than we thought, but it's not like it's more advanced than the later classical era. But it can be some really interesting stuff. So, Göbekli Tepe continues to pose a range of questions, including how a complex hunter-gatherer society, as evident at Göbekli Tepe, was able to construct such monumental buildings, and for what precise purpose. The world may never know. Also, it remains uncertain what the enclosures looked like when they were in use. Were they roofed? Were they open to the sky? Or were they buried immediately after construction? It is not known whether the enclosures retained some kind of purpose after their burial. Perhaps the pillars were still visible in their uppermost part and used accordingly, as some evidence might suggest. After the end of active use of Göbekli Tepe in the middle PPNB, forget what that means, sorry, but it's some era, 8000 BC, knowledge about the site seems to have persisted for some time. At least the general notion of a special place connected to an earlier religion seems to have been present in the region, perhaps fueled by remains visible on the surface. This becomes clear from occasional destruction at some of the enclosures. The only evidence for post Stone Age building activities at Gobekli Tepe consist of the so-called Roman watchtower at the southern part of the plateau and a nearby cistern. The stone foundations of an approximately square, tower-like building are visible there. Nice. Oh my God, I left the banner on again. Gosh darn it. I did it. I caught it earlier this time. This may have been part of the Romano-Byzantine Euphrates lines guarding the Roman Empire's eastern frontier against the Parthians, particularly since the southern part of the plateau advances into the Haran plain. That's the city near it. We're looking at the image now. That's the city, Sanliurfa. This looks like fertile land. And then I think down here, like off map, is wait, can you see my mouse? I hope so. Yeah. Maybe you couldn't before. This is the city, and then down here I think is the Mediterranean. I don't know how far in miles it really is, but oh, this is oops. Never mind. Okay. Particularly since the southern part of the plateau advances into the Haran plain and offers a good view in three directions. Agriculture, agricultural use of the mound of Gobekli Tepe possibly also started in the Roman period and continued during the Middle Ages and modern times. This later use does not appear to have affected the buried Neolithic buildings. So I wonder if they were doing that just because they had a significant association with the site or whether it was like just random. Did they see the ruins? Did they think that it was like a important place? But whatever. A first mention of Gobekli Tepe as a Neolithic site can be noted in the frame of a combined surveys by the universities of Chicago and Istanbul in the 1960s. However, the architecture buried within the artificial mound remained unrecognized until its discovery by the German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt in 1994. Excavations commenced in 1995. Thereafter, annual excavation work has been conducted by the Collaborative Excavation and Research Project at Gobekli Tepe, including the Museum of Sanliurfa and the German Archaeological Institute, DAI. So that is the end of that section of chapter 2. There's more. Chapter 2 is quite text dense. We're on page 39. And if you wanted to follow along with this document, by the way, you can find it on the UNESCO website for Gobekli Tepe within the documents page. What is up, Cause? How are you doing, man? You've been in every one for a while, and I appreciate that. We are finishing up reading Gobekli Tepe. People definitely don't care about this, but I'm in it, man. I'm in it. I'm committed to finishing this now. Any questions? Anyone want to know anything? This shit is wild. You're supposed to eat kiwi skin? Okay. Gobekli Tepe is a distinctive landmark in the natural topography of the area. It being the highest elevation of the Jurmis Range. I wonder why it's called that. The site is visible from afar, also due to a large mulberry tree growing on top of the tell. Sorry. This tree has the connotation of a wishing tree, a typical pilgrimage place for be visited by local people. The tell of Gobekli Tepe was also used agriculturally until the site went over into state ownership in 2007. The plow The tell of Gobekli Tepe was also used agriculturally until the site went over into state ownership in 2007. Plowing activities have given the tell a distinct brown color, this contributing to its clear visibility in the otherwise barren rocky landscape. Highlight. Today, Gobekli Tepe is an active excavation site and an increasingly important tourist destination. With related infrastructure developments. See Chapter 4 for details. Also, along the slopes and in its hollows, olive plantations cover considerable parts of the mound. These were planted shortly prior to the registration of Gobekli Tepe as an archaeological conservation site and represent a recent and somewhat artificial, but currently substantial part of the tell's vegetation. No, I got no pizza tonight. I want pizza. Oh my God, I want pizza. I might order pizza. I'm going to order pizza. I'm streaming for 3 hours. I'm ordering pizza. Mm. Then immediately 5 till midnight. I'll go do that when I go take a break. Gobekli Tepe and its wait, I was going to highlight something too. Got to highlight this. Okay. Gobekli Tepe and its present surroundings are characterized by an open landscape with steppe-like vegetation, treeless, with no higher shrub vegetation than hawthorn. It is an unspoiled cultural landscape. Oh, actually, we'll go through these pictures. You can see them. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Rolling hills, different colors. Love that. This is the village Oransic and a limestone quarry. Very nice. Modern power lines. Very nice rocks. Ooh, reminds me of home in New England where we have stone walls. The Guinness too. Yes. Hell yeah. No, I don't have any Guinness. I don't drink a lot. And I was at a conference. I was at the conference recently, the one in Arizona everybody was at. And I drank a lot. I drank a lot. More than I have in years. So I'm leaving it alone for a little while. And by that, it's like normally I drink like 2 beers a week. So by that I mean I'm literally not drinking. Okay. But yeah, looks very nice. It is an unspoiled cultural landscape developed out of the former prehistoric forest steppe with pistachio and almond trees. The open plains of the Huron Plain lie south-southeast east of Gobekli Tepe, while the landscape to the north-northwest is dominated by rocky mountainous terrain. Essentially, there have been no major disturbances in the areas since prehistoric times. Large developments are absent as well. The landscape is of rural character, dotted with a number of small villages and settlements. The lands around Gobekli Tepe are used mainly for grazing, goats, cows, while fields occupy the plains. There is extensive rain-fed and irrigated agriculture. Sorry, I need to get a new contact prescription, I think. I'm having trouble, especially when I look so long. I don't think it's healthy to look at a computer screen this long. Got to do it for the bag. Bag. Okay. There's extensive rain-fed. Oops, forgot about that. Oh my gosh. Rain-fed and irrigated agriculture. Crops include mainly wheat and barley, also cotton, and plantations of cultivated pistachio and vine. The Turkish Forest Department is carrying out successful reforestation in the area with pine trees. The rocky character of the region also makes this an area for limestone quarries, of which at least one exists within the closer radius of the site. Mainly to the north of Göbekli Tepe, there are also a number of additional settlement mounds, tells, some of which are listed as first-degree archaeological conservation sites, such as Gurpınar, Difisar, and Karatepe. I don't know what the heck I'm saying. In spite of improved accessibility accessibility via a new asphalt road and its reshaping by excavation works and touristic site development, Gobekli Tepe is still characterized by a clear sense of remoteness and isolation. This is vital not only to evoke a sense of the past and to contribute to understanding the history of the site, but also for its contemporary existence experience. Sweet. Um, oh man, I could have just moved past that, but then the tangible and intangible condition of the place and its connection to the surrounding landscape are still intact. Here, the absence of modern visual intrusions seems just as significant as the natural quietness of the place and the absence of modern noise sources. Uh, oh, to ensure adequate protection of the setting, meaning the immediate and extended environment that is part of, contributes to, or assists the significance and distinctive character of the site, an area around Gobekli Tepe should be defined to serve as a buffer zone, i.e., as an additional protection zone around the site. Recently, a buffer zone has been developed for Gobekli Tepe, covering an area of approximately 2,180 hectares. A more detailed description of the buffer zone is to be found under Appendix A. So this is Chapter 2, Section 4. Unless anyone has any questions on anything so far, everything making sense, any jargon I need to explain. There's a buffer zone around the Gobekli Tepe site that doesn't have like the first degree archaeological zone has a lot more strict like there's a lot of stuff you're legally not allowed to do there, like agriculture, and things have to be more approved by permits. But the buffer zone allows a wider range of activities, but still bans a lot of them. And I think that buffer zone is the third degree archaeological zone, and I under Turkish law, and I have no idea what the second degree is. Or if there is a second degree, maybe they just skipped it. Maybe two is an unlucky number in Turkey or something. You'd be surprised how many times those old superstitions end up having like real consequences for how people act and name things in the modern world. Regardless, statement of significance. Significance of the proposed World Heritage Site is under it. So I should say, for those who don't know, that this site management plan was being written in the context of Göbekli Tepe being proposed as a World Heritage Site. So they were updating the site management plan to be closer to what UNESCO wants and to have certain things in it that are required for the site to be considered and nominated, and ultimately, in the case of Göbekli Tepe in 2018, accepted as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, which is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, Heritage Culture stuff. That's what they do. Göbekli Tepe Archaeological Site, 9600 to 8200 BC, is comprised of two main components. One, a man-made tell comprising stratified accumulations of archaeological deposits, including building remains, and two, a limestone plateau which serves as locale. Is this a British American English difference? Because I read that as locale, which serves as locale and quarry for the built structures. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, but that's what it says. Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe is of international, regional, and local significance. Its features and finds, together with their unspoilt setting, form a distinctive archaeological landscape. Göbekli Tepe of earliest known examples is home of earliest known examples of man-made monumental architecture. Talking like a caveman. Göbekli Tepe is home of earliest known example of man-made monumental architecture. Rob, okay. I don't need to do voices. I don't need to do that. I don't need to try. Yeah, there's been quite a few grammatical errors in this, haven't there? I should be documenting those and make a little short run. It's a little late. I should have been saying Cleveland, but some of them are funny. Gobekli Tepe is home of earliest known examples of man-made monumental architecture. Talks like the Asian guy on South Park. Oh, to break down my city wall. The stone structures are colossal in scale and extent. Oops, did it again. And architecturally and artistically of a quality without known parallel in the early Neolithic. True, no parallel. While the architecture testifies, sorry, stigmatism. I don't know if that's related. Gosh, while the architecture testifies to a highly advanced megalithic building culture with a sophisticated understanding of building materials, construction methods, and elaborate artistic skills, the existence of such a site is testimony to an exceptional degree of social organization, characterized by communal effort and division of labor within the complex hunter gatherer communities involved in its construction. So, a note on that. In my understanding, these whole things right here, elaborate artistic skills, maybe not, but sophisticated understanding of building materials, we do see more sophisticated building in like the hunter gatherers, but like they're fishermen in the Coast Salish people of the Pacific Northwest who mill logs. But I would say that this megalithic architecture, I don't know of any examples in at other sites where hunter gatherers built this. Like the exceptional degree of social organization, communal effort, and division of labor. These are generally associated with no longer, at least they have been in the past, to my knowledge, have been associated with this group not being hunter gatherers. So I don't know what exact evidence they have for them being hunter gatherers, but if the evidence is simply that they don't have evidence of explicit agriculture or herding, like I'm not sure. Maybe it's somewhere. Maybe I don't know how well the area has been surveyed, but this would be pretty unheard of for hunter gatherers to be to have the characteristics of like complex social organization at this level and building skills of this level. I think it would be without parallel in in like known hunter gatherer groups that have been documented in history. It would be very, very rare, especially without like some level of horticulture, because these are not like hard barriers. Like agriculture has to be very developed as opposed to it being horticulture, these smaller gardens. But you know, even the Algonquins around me, who were even less politically advanced than say the Haudenosaunee, who are building longhouses and have this system called the Great Peace, which is sometimes called like a constitution. Like they were much more politically complex. But even the Algonquins, the Eastern Algonquins, living in like seasonally transient no nomadic existence as hunter gatherers, they still practiced horticulture. So it's like, I don't know. I want to see more evidence, but it feels like they're just saying that they're hunter gatherers because they don't have the evidence. And I don't know, maybe that's not true. Maybe there's other evidence, but it seems like a big leap to say that this was hunter gatherers to me. What's up, Diego? How you doing, brother? We're reading the Gobekli Tepe site management plan so that we know what's inside it. That's what we're doing today. So I'm going to keep reading after I highlight this. The use of abstract and realistic iconography to impart special meaning to the architectural components is extraordinary. Oh, brighten it up. That's way better. Okay. It indicates Gobekli Tepe's association with a complex belief system and its close links to the natural environment. The prehistoric built components of Gobekli Tepe, as well as their elevated setting on top of the limestone plateau, suggest its use as a ceremonial meeting place, most certainly connected with large gatherings. Ongoing archaeological and bioarchaeological studies also indicate the supra-regional nature of these ceremonial gatherings. The super-regional influence of the site is highlighted by the fact that the site's characteristic architectural elements, most notably the T-shaped pillars, recur at other archaeological sites in the upper Mesopotamian region. The repetitive use of certain architectural elements in the site's Layer 3 and Layer 2, as well as at other archaeological sites in the wider area, is proof of the continuity of building traditions and their symbolic meaning over at least 1,500 years in the region. The building activities of the scale, excuse me, the building activities of the scale visible at Gobekli Tepe may be associated with the beginning of the domestication of plants and animals, marking the transition to the food producing way of typical life. I'll get to that in a second, Diego. May be associated with the beginning of the domestication of plants and animals, marking the transition to the food processing way of life typical for the Neolithic. Correspondingly, the complex belief system illustrated by the site most likely also reflects a change in contemporaneous worldview, thus making human control over animals a viable option. Consequently, the characteristic and finds of the site and their almost undisturbed survival over the past 12,000 years make Gobekli Tepe the key site for understanding the Neolithization of the Old World. Very cool. So, spreading the technology of the Neolithic, of the New Stone Age, which was a lot of farming technology. Wow. Hmm. That's very cool. Are all those studies cited somewhere on the document? So actually, they're not, and that's not necessarily abnormal for this because this isn't necessarily an archaeology paper. It's more like it's a site management plan. So it's not meant to be imparting information in a peer-reviewed setting, except under a certain context, not as archaeological information. This is basically background knowledge. So chapter 2, what was it titled again? Oh, it should be at the top of the page. Description and significance of Gobekli Tepe archaeological site. So this is a short synopsis of the site and its history, for the context of just the site. So it wouldn't necessarily need that. It wouldn't necessarily need to have the citations on it. It probably would be better if it did, honestly, but it's not like they did anything wrong by not putting it on there. Chapter 2. I'm just making sure that yeah, they're staying. Highlight because I'm using a different app. But good question, Diego. I think they have citations somewhere a few times. Maybe they're using footnotes for something else. Lost the page. Oh, there's no cap on it. Okay. Just highlighted that. Iconography. Okay. Attributes of outstanding universal value of Gobekli Tepe, the tell in the limestone plateau. So the outstanding universal value, I'm not sure if that is used in a different context as well, but this, like I was saying before, this is important to its acceptance as UNESCO World Heritage Site. This document is from 2017, and Gobekli Tepe was subsequently accepted as a World Heritage Site the next year in 2018. Attributes are the physical features that express the values of a heritage site and contribute to the understanding of the site's cultural significance. Attributes form the tangible basis for assessing the authenticity and integrity of the site. See, I think that's a that's not a citation, this two here. I think it's just a subtext thing, extra information. There is actually, yes, Diego, you're correct. There is a general sources list at the end, and it's very long, but they did not do in-text citations, which, again, for this is fine. But yes, that reminds me, I have looked through the document before, and that is included. Attributes form the tangible basis for assessing the authenticity and integrity of the site, and a model site management plan must ensure sustainable long-term conservation. And by the way, all of these vocab words here, they are defined in the document in a section that's in the first video I did on this. Because I read out the vocabulary section. It was called something else, something more scientific-y in there, but that is in here. So if you're wondering at any point when reading this what a word specifically means in that context, you should be able to control F and find that where it's defined at the beginning of the document. Not a book, document. It's as long as a book, small book. Long-term conservation of the acknowledged attributes of the site. This section aims at providing a brief overview of the attributes of the site, which must be kept in mind when developing the overarching strategies for managing Gobekli Tepe. Consisting of two overlapping yet distinct features, the man-made archaeological tell and the limestone plateau, Gobekli Tepe comprises prehistoric archaeology, natural components, and comparatively younger elements which date to Roman and more recent times. Among these, the physical attributes of Gobekli Tepe, which express the values contributing to the site's cultural significance, may have been identified as follows. Attributes of the archaeological tell. The elevated siting of the tell on top of the limestone plateau. The characteristic form of the tell which gives the site its name. The substance of the tell, including the excavated and buried archaeological remains, both immovable and movable, but still in situ. That means in place in the site. And the infill, as well as respective material composition of these components. The stratigraphy of the tell, as revealed in the excavated areas. The in situ, is it situ? Don't care. Positioning of the prehistoric enclosures, both excavated and buried with respect to one another, the layout, design, and form of these enclosures, as well as their individual elements, the immediate and extended setting of the tell provided by the limestone plateau and its surrounding landscape, respectively, the visual interrelationship between the tell and the plateau, as well as its setting, i.e., views from the tell towards the plateau and its surrounding landscape, as well as vice versa. Attributes of the limestone plateau. The position of the plateau in relation to the surrounding landscape. The distinctive form of the plateau, including its star-shaped horizontal surface and sloping vertical profile. The substance of the plateau, including the natural composition of its horizontal and vertical profiles. The substance of the plateau, including all remains and traces of prehistoric human activities, both immovable and movable but still in situ, on the horizontal surface of the plateau. The immediate setting of the plateau, provided by the surrounding landscape. The visual interrelationship between the plateau and its setting, i.e., views from the plateau toward the surrounding landscape and vice versa. Furthermore, as indicators of the character of the site, the sense of remoteness and isolation, as well as the natural quietness experienced at the entire site, are also important primary attributes of Gobekli Tepe, even though they may not be strictly of a tangible nature. It should be noted that the younger elements of the site, such as the remains of the Roman watchtower, a nearby cistern, the mulberry tree, and the small Muslim cemetery with four holy tombs, I don't understand why the word holy is being used in the site management plan. That is very strange. Four holy tombs? It's a tomb. It's by definition holy. What does that mean? Have been identified as secondary. Oh shit. Sorry, I got a text. It was a cat. Okay. Literally live right now. You messed up my flow. Wow, I'm stopping doing my job to flirt with women. That's crazy. Okay. Oh, I have to sneeze. Don't have to sneeze. Have to sneeze. Sorry, one moment. Worst feeling ever. Gosh, couldn't sneeze. Tried to find the cat. That would make me sneeze. Couldn't find the cat. It's not my cat. I'm not his keeper. Okay, nobody's watching now. Sweet. 3 people. I don't care. Still doing it. I'll do it for 3 people. I'll do it for 3 people. I'll do it for one person. Probably won't do something like this again. Why did my light do that? Wow. There we go. Okay. Jeez. Sorry, I'm all stuffy. I feel like the cat has to be in here then. That's like my allergic reaction. From an architectural perspective, the man-made monumental structures at Gobekli Tepe are remarkable due to their sheer size and number. Further, the building typology is the earliest known example of its kind. The building typology, so this is like its physical characteristics, the designs on it, it's the first of its kind, as in, other sites that share a similar architectural style. They are newer sites, likely inspired by this, unless there's another site that is earlier that we just don't know about, which is very possible. The architecture and iconography of these structures point to their special ceremonial function. The monuments were probably used in connection with public rituals, possibly funerary, and extensive feasting. So far, only little evidence has been found of domestic building types or related elements which would suggest the use of the site as a settlement. However, continued excavations would likely lead to the discovery of further structures of this type. Then why aren't you doing it? Then why aren't you doing it? Would likely lead to the discovery, so you don't even know what all you think there might be domestic sites. So you're just saying, oh, you can dig it up, dog. You can't even make an updated site management plan. Oh my God. 5% excavated. You're out of your goddamn mind. Okay. Okay. The fact that Gobekli Tepe's characteristic architectural elements, most notably the T-shaped pillars, recur at other archaeological sites in the upper Mesopotamian region also contributes to the historic value of the site. The repetitive use of certain architectural elements in the site's layer 3 and layer 2, as well as at other archaeological sites in the wider area, is proof of the historic continuity of building traditions and their symbolic meaning over at least 1,500 years in this region. Um, do I think there was a pre-Ice Age civilization? I don't have a clear yes or no answer. I certainly don't say that there is ridiculous amounts of evidence for it, like enough to the point where I would say that it's definitely true, but I also don't think that we know enough to disprove it, and especially Flint Dibble didn't. And I think I have enough questions of that time period, uh, and this video is not about that, so I won't go into it, but maybe that would be interesting sometime to do. But there's a lot of questions like, okay, so I'll try to list at least a few of them. The North American and South American megafauna extinction I don't understand how that happened if humans were already in the Americas before the Clovis culture of 11,600 years ago, which we're told they are. But we still have so few examples of pre-Clovis sites in the Americas, which is confusing to me. Like there are a few, but there's only a few, which leads me to believe either something maybe something in their culture made whatever materials they left behind be a lot harder to find. Maybe we're really not looking enough, but that doesn't make sense to me because of all the private archaeology done in North America, where they have to check what would be random-ish locations because they're based on where we're building large buildings. They have to check for archaeological sites when they do that. So I feel like we should find more, and maybe the density in the Americas just wasn't high enough for some reason. But then why wouldn't it be high? Like what happened? So I don't know. I have a lot of questions there. The biggest evidence for the megafauna extinction to me, it happened when it did. That's what makes me think that the impact is likely. A thing that happened is I can't explain. It used to be explainable when with Clovis first that humans came in with this relatively advanced technology that other species of animals had evolved alongside humans as they got slightly better technology over periods of time. And those animals had no natural understanding of humans because they hadn't seen them. So the humans were able to overhunt them. But if Clovis weren't the first people in the Americas, then which everyone agrees they're not, then what caused that megafauna extinction? Um, which is more evidence to me, it's connected to the evidence of a pre-ice age civilization. And what we're saying here, it could have been, and I think this is what Graham Hancock thinks. It's like I'm not even saying that there's some sort of massive global Atlantis, big like Star Wars citywide, planet-wide city like Coruscant or something. Like I think that in wanting to argue with Graham Hancock, they kind of exaggerate, and maybe sometimes Graham Hancock gets excited and he maybe says words that don't necessarily mean that it's this massive civilization, but certain people do take them that way, or they can take them that way if they're being malicious. So, I think that we don't understand everything about the Ice Age. And I think that a lot of mainstream archaeology makes too broad swaths of claims. At the same time, many of them accuse Graham of doing the same thing, but I think that a lot of that Ice Age history is based on that because we don't have a lot of evidence for the Ice Age. Flint brought up that there's 13 or 14,000 sites in Siberia and Europe, and that wasn't true. It was like less than 3,000 sites. It was less than 3,000 sites. It was that many site forms, which is a different thing. So there were actually like sites had been recorded like up to 7 times. I saw some of them with different misspellings. So it wasn't that many sites. And that's only there, not the other places. The Sundaland in Southeast Asia. What do we know about that? It used to be a much larger continent. We're finding these weird things there. Um, they have to ground truth that void at Gunung Padang, but like they haven't done that, so we don't know what it is yet, and it very well could be something. Yeah, I don't know. The way that mainstream archaeologists act on the internet doesn't help because I see things where I know that they're not being honest, and I know that they're not giving me the best information, and then it makes me not trust the other things that they say, and I want to. It's like it's impossible to do what I do without, putting some blind trust in at least the archaeological and scientific experts that make things, write things in these peer-reviewed studies. And, I can evaluate to a certain extent certain subfields, but not all of it. So let's keep going. In artistic terms, Gobekli Tepe features a wealth of reliefs, sculptures, and other objects depicting anthropomorphic elements, fauna, and abstract forms. These features are unique, not only due to the unusual quality of their execution, often monumental in style, but also since they represent a complex system of symbolism which comprises a combination of different sets of motifs that have otherwise only been encountered individually at other Neolithic sites. I'll break that down for a minute here. Artistic terms, Gobekli Tepe features a wealth of relief, sculptures, and other objects. Due to the unusual quality of their execution, monumental in style, they represent a complex system of symbolism which comprises a combination of different sets of motifs that have only. Wow, that's very interesting. We're going to make that a different color here. So it's saying that they have reliefs, sculptures, and anthropomorphic elements in fauna, in animal and abstract form. Their unusual quality of execution, monumental in style, a complex system of symbolism which comprises a combination. So there's different sets of motifs that have been encountered individually at other Neolithic sites. So there's all these different sets, right, of different animals and abstract forms. And a lot of these sets are found at individual sites. Like there's one site that shows one set, and then another site that shows another set, and they're all around. And then all of them together are at Gobekli Tepe. That's very cool. Am I crazy? That's cool, right? If you're watching my show here, you probably think that's cool. Um, hell yeah. Awesome. I'm excited now. I sure don't sound it, but I am. Okay. Another hint of an earlier civilization. Is it? It's potentially, sure. It's potentially another civilization that had them, or they could have been developed at Gobekli Tepe and spread from there. But they're both possibilities. It could fit into an argument with more evidence, definitely. The monumental character of the man-made features at Gobekli Tepe provides evidence of a highly advanced building culture of the prehistoric society and indicates elaborate technological skills as well as familiarity with the nature of building materials possessed by the builders of Gobekli Tepe. Furthermore, undertaking building activities of the scale associated with the site must have required division of labor and progressive logistical abilities of the builders. We're going to highlight that right there. As a result, Gobekli Tepe is a testimony to a prehistoric society with a well-developed level of social organization, a characteristic which was not typically associated with prehistoric hunter-gatherer groups until the discovery of Gobekli Tepe. We're going to highlight that in a different color, which I have to select by clicking on this and clicking the color in orange. The evidential value of the site is additionally revealed in the use of iconography, depicting fauna, anthropomorphic elements, and abstract forms on the architectural elements and of other artifacts discovered at the tell. The use of iconography not only testifies to the sophisticated artistic skills of the builders of Gobekli Tepe, but also indicates the existence of a complex belief system which seems to have had a close connection to its contemporary natural environment and is most likely a reflection of a change in worldview towards the living world, making human control over animals a viable option. This is argument. It's not necessarily an argument that I disagree with, but it is an argument being made, by the way. Like the way it's written is like it's most likely this. It's like this is how a scientific argument is made, but I don't with this also I don't agree or disagree. Everyone thinks they have to agree or disagree all the time. I don't agree or disagree with Graham Hancock's hypothesis. I don't agree or disagree with this passage right here. I think it's a very interesting idea. I think Graham Hancock's idea is very interesting as well, and I like learning about them, and I'm glad that Graham Hancock and whoever wrote this section of this site management plan wrote them because I am enjoying it, and I hope you are too. Smash that like button. I hate that I said that. Let's continue. Which seems to have had a close connection and associated ceremonial customs. Before the discovery of Gobekli Tepe, these were characteristics unknown for such an early stage of human history. Wow, very mystery. The elevated setting of the prehistoric structures provided by the limestone plateau also serves to indicate that the monuments of Gobekli Tepe were sited keeping their ceremonial function in mind While the scale and extent of the site, as well as the faunal remains discovered at the site, suggest that it was a ceremonial place, most certainly connected to large supra-regional gatherings, including feastings. What is up, brother? I haven't seen you in a while. Glad to see you. Unfortunately, these do not come through on StreamYard, but they're there. If you're in the YouTube chat, you see them. If you're on Twitter, go to YouTube. Like the video. Subscribe if you're not for more autism. Large supernatural gatherings, including feasting. The archaeological, and bioarchaeological material evidence at Gobekli Tepe thus sheds new light on the technical, organizational, social, ritual, and communal aspects of life during the pre-pottery Neolithic. Accordingly, Gobekli Tepe emerges as a super-regional center site, and its monumental structures were built as a result of several favorable natural as well as cultural conditions in the region. Jeez. Prehistoric archaeologists and bioarchaeologists furthermore interpret the characteristics and finds of the site as possible evidence of Gobekli Tepe's association with the beginning of the domestication of plants and animals, marking the transition to the food-producing way of life typical for the Neolithic. Oops. We're going to highlight that yellow. The positioning of the layer 2 structures overlapping only partially with the older enclosures of layer 3 below them, which were deliberately backfilled by their creators after their initial use, also contributes to the evidential value of the site. The sitting of these younger structures indicates recognition of the existence of the layer 3 enclosures, which provides evidence of continuity and knowledge and respect for the historic fabric of the site. Last but not least, the limestone plateau, which serves as the locale of the prehistoric monuments of Gobekli Tepe, was significantly altered by human intervention during the Neolithic, and in its present shape and appearance provides evidence of its use as the original source of building material, as well as the place of construction of the monuments of Gobekli Tepe. In addition, remains of building activities on the plateau dating to the Roman period are evidence that the site continued to be used even after the Stone Age. Thus, the prehistoric and younger finds and features of Gobekli Tepe, together with the natural limestone plateau, form a distinctive archaeological landscape, which is a distinguishable. Why am I wearing my studio headphones? I'm not listening to anything. Is there any audio coming through? Someone in the comments tell me if there's audio coming through. What am I doing? This is so much more comfortable. Oh my God, it's an hour and 15 minutes in, and I didn't realize I didn't need that. Oh, I can hear my friends out. Yes, Rocktism. Hello, Cynthia. How are you doing? Good to see you again. I hope you are enjoying reading this entire thing. This is much less popular than my usual lives. So thank you extra for being here today. Appreciate it, Crafty Kev. I'm trying to Crafty Kev. Oh, pronunciation is so hard. It's so hard. I don't know how these ebook readers do it. Oh man. Okay. Due to the unique where was I? Thus, the prehistoric and younger finds and features of Gobekli Tepe, together with the natural limestone plateau, form a distinctive archaeological landscape, which is a distinguishable local landmark testifying to the genesis and use of the site over several thousand years. Thank you very much. English toffee, fantastic. I had some toffee apple pie recently that I got at Kroger. It was fantastic. Warmed that up, some Bluebell ice cream. Scientific value. Due to the unique characteristics which contribute to its historic and evidential value, Gobekli Tepe is also of tremendous scientific value. Research on the site and its archaeological remains can address a range of key questions. a range of key questions about the emergence of civilization and culture, and Gobekli Tepe is already regarded as the key site for understanding the process of Neolithization, i.e., the transition from the hunting gathering lifestyle to the lifestyle of sedentary subsistence of the old world. I only like British coffee. I'm getting distracted by it's very easy to distract me. No, British coffee is very good. Sorry, here we go. Make my cord a little longer. All right. I'm actually more popular per capita wise in Australia and the UK than I am in America and Canada, which is very odd. Um, yeah. The scientific value is enhanced by the almost undisturbed survival of the monumental structures for more than 12,000 years. The deliberate backfilling of the enclosures by their creators, as well as the apparently continuing knowledge about and respect for it by the later builders, has resulted in an exceptional preservation of the monuments, making Gobekli Tepe a veritable time capsule and thus an exceptional resource for continuing research. Zero mistakes, not a single one. Sensory value. The distinctive archaeological landscape of Gobekli Tepe and its positioning within the wider natural setting of the limestone plateau is critical to understanding the history and meaning of the place, as is the unique sensory experience provided by the site. While the unspoilt environs of Göbekli Tepe, as well as the remoteness and quietness experienced at the site, add significantly to its special character, Göbekli Tepe in itself exudes a sense of being a special place, which provides a window into the past. The site offers an exceptional sensory experience which takes the people visiting it onto a journey back into time, transporting them through the more than 20,000 years of history of the evolution of the place. The place clearly has a special feel to it, which can neither entirely be captured in words nor be classified simply as an aesthetic or any other similar sensory experience, but whose existence is undeniable and which contributes to the spirit of the place. He's bringing an old world animism into this, which is fine. I mean, I'm into it. I don't know if it really, I think it has a place in a management plan, but, it's not like I disagree. Is there any mention of its position with relation to the stars, or is that a Hancock mystical invention? I don't know if that will be in the management plan itself, but I believe there are some archaeoastronomers, which is a subfield in archaeology. It's an official one. Well, I don't know about official. I don't know if there really is anything official about any of the subfields, but it archaeoastronomy is being established as a more prominent subfield of archaeology that has various critics and supporters to it. But no, I think I'm 98% sure that Hancock, when he discusses the archaeoastronomy of the site at Gobekli Tepe, he does reference the work of a traditional PhD archaeoastronomer. I could be wrong on that, but I'm almost positive that's true. Sometimes I do get things mixed up in my head about different sites. I did have an archaeoastronomer on a while ago who works on his PhD should be getting approved very soon, and he works on connections between the Mississippian mound builder culture in America, in the United States, modern day U.S., and the Mayan culture of the Yucatan. So you can imagine those are like my two favorite things: Native Americans in the United States and Mayans is my favorite. Well, Native Americans in the US and into Mexico and Canada. It's not like they cared about future borders. So, like, for example, the Haudenosaunee are into Canada, and some of them are Canadian. And then, like, the Comanche, the Tohono O'odham, they're into Mexico. They're traditional and I think even modern land. Besides the intrinsic values identified above, there are also the so-called extrinsic values of a heritage site. These are values or benefits that are derived or that the stakeholders hope to derive from the site. And the extrinsic values of Gobekli Tepe are as follows. Social value. Gobekli Tepe has a special sense of place, its elevated location, and the remoteness and natural quietness of the place, as well as the knowledge of its probable use for ceremonial purposes in prehistoric times, mark it as a special place that also attracted the attention of later inhabitants of this region. Located on top of the tell, there can be found four graves and a lone mulberry tree, probably popularly known as the wishing tree. I don't care about the wishing tree. They talk about the wishing tree so much. It exists. That's all you have to say. They barely talk about the olive trees, the plantations. There's like over 1,000 of them, I think, in total at the site, or there was, but they just bring up the mulberry tree over and over. They just want this wishy-washy, lovey crap. As the lone mulberry tree, popularly known as the wishing tree, which used to be visited by the local women. A little misogynistic, don't you think? Today, this area is still kept clean by the excavation's local workforce. Indeed, local communities continue to attach a certain value to the site. Local excavation workers, in addition, already identify with the place and feel a strong sense of responsibility towards its upkeep. Okay. I mean, that could be true. It might not be true, but I don't know why an archaeologist or whatever, an office worker is telling me that in here. Um, at the same time, there is further potential for ensuring that Gobekli Tepe continues to hold social value for the inhabitants of the nearby villages, especially for Ornsig as well as those of the wider region. This can be achieved by improving their knowledge about and appreciation of the archaeological and landscape elements of the site, as well as through a participatory approach towards the future developments of the sites. I get that, but you have to manage the site. You have to base manage the site. They're not doing that. I live in Northwest Alabama. Lots of mounds here. Yeah, that's near where he does that, I think. Unfortunately, a lot of those mounds, it's very off topic, so I'll be brief. Um, a lot of those mounds were just taken down. Like St. Louis, Missouri was on the site of a lot of mounds, and sometimes they just didn't know what they were. Sometimes they knew that they were native and didn't care. Um, but yeah, it's unfortunate we lost a lot, and whatever archaeological material might have been inside them, because sometimes they were just dirt, but sometimes there were other things in there, including graves, which is disrespectful, of course, but also just sad we lost the knowledge that was in those. Bro, they've been slaughtering the native names on the news lately because of the floods in Washington. They keep oh, they're getting the on in Washington State. Don't the people in Washington State know how to pronounce them though? Like where I live, people know how to pronounce Eastern Algonquin things because everything's got an Eastern Algonquin name, like Connecticut, Massachusetts, Narragansett beer. Narragansett lager is like New England's beer. That's our Bud Light, man. Narragansett lager. Yeah. But I guess the Coast Salish names are CNN. Okay, so it's national news. See, that's interesting because local Washington State and Oregon news would know how to pronounce Coast Salish names like Squamish County, and they're weird words. They are for English speakers, but the national news is not going to know how to say, Squamish County. Crazy name. I think that's a county. Recreational and educational value. The spirit of place, including the remoteness and natural quietness experienced at Go Didn't I already read this? God, they're just repeating themselves. Which partly derives from its own spoiled setting, as well as the undisturbed views of the surrounding landscape from the entire site contribute to the creation of an ambiance that has a recreational value. The ambiance provides a uniquely authentic and sensory experience for the visitors, and its recreational value can be enhanced further with the help of visitor facilities that are carefully placed based on a balanced understanding of all values of the site. Wait, what? Oh, oops. Of the site. This unique recreational experience offered by the site and its natural environs is further complemented by Gobekli Tepe's enormous educational value. The site offers researchers, as well as local, national, and international visitors, the opportunity to gain an insight into the lifestyle of the hunter gatherers, as well as learn about the exceptional super regional importance of the place in the early Neolithic. While both the immovable and movable archaeological components, that's like the structure itself is immovable, whereas the artifacts you remove from the site during excavation, those are movable, of the site contribute to imparting a better understanding of Gobekli Tepe and its cultural significance. Continuing excavations at the site would provide the chance for the visitors to gain insights into theoretical as well as practical approach towards scientific research being adopted. This potential is already used by school classes who participate in excursions to the site and needs to be developed further. Economic value, already counted among the main attractions in the region and prior to recent political turbulence in the region, receiving a continuously growing number of visitors every year. Keep in mind, this was written in 2017. I don't know if that's still relevant today, although it might be because of its relation geographically to Syria. Maybe I could be wrong on that, but it is in southeastern Turkey. Um, Already counted among the main attractions. Its economic value additionally stems from the site's potential to contributing to the economic development of the local communities. This can be achieved not just through making the most of the opportunities provided for the development of local businesses as a result of growing tourism, but also based on involvement by the local inhabitants and other activities being undertaken in and around the site. For instance, the excavation and research project at Gobekli Tepe has already had a positive economic impact on the local community by providing jobs for men from the village of Oranjesic. Sexist again. Wait, I want to read those. Benedict P. 1980 survey work in southeastern Anatolia in Campbell, southern Anatolia, Istanbul, University of Istanbul. According to paragraph 82 and 85, respectively, of the operational guidelines for the implementation of the World Heritage Convention, properties may be understood to meet the conditions of authenticity if their cultural values are truthfully and credibly expressed through a variety of attributes. WHC 2013, page 22. And integrity is a measure of the wholeness and intactness of the natural and or cultural heritage and its attributes. Evidential value is the potential of a place to yield evidence about past human activity. English Heritage, 2008. Reading. I'm reading. Okay. Okay, chapter 3. Okay. I'm going to take a little breaky poo because I just talked for an hour and a half, and that was atrocious. And I'm going to come back. 15-minute break, and we're only on chapter 3. There's 8 chapters. Oh, no. I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back. Don't leave. Or leave. I'm not your dad. I'll be back. I'm back. I'm back. How did I do on 15 minutes? I think it's only been 10 minutes. I think I did it. There's 9 people here waiting. Let's see what the chat said while I was gone. Oh, only 2 comments. Sweet. Can't see it. Yeah, this is gonna be a while. There might be a part 3 on this. So I have to do 5 till midnight at 8 p.m. Eastern, and I'm in Central Time right now. Hit me up if you know somebody. Yes. Okay. We're gonna get back to it. I'm gonna leave a marker for when we're starting, and we're gonna start chapter 3. I actually did go order pizza right now. That is what I did from Pizza the Hut, chapter 3, 139:58. Where'd my cat go? Brought the cat in. Why did I do 138:59? That's like where I am now. 140, 20. Am I putting these in the wrong order? Oh my gosh. I don't know if they're going to show up. Wait, am I supposed to put the number first for putting in the markers? I'm so sorry. What toppings? I got a large pan double pepperoni, the regular pepperoni, and then I guess they got the cup pepperonis. Sure wish they had some hot honey. I think they used to. Okay. Double pepperoni bacon? No, just double pepperoni. I like the pepperoni. Okay, chapter 3. Here we go. Oh my gosh, now it's later again. 141:20. He's a slinky. You want to hear about archaeology? You want to hear about Gobekli Tepe, Remy? Remy's French. Well, his name's French. That was a cat, but the cat does act like a puppy quite a bit. We like to say that this cat is a dog. Just a dog, not a dog. Okay, chapter 3, site management plan. Put everything back in the right tab, you know? Put everything back in the right tab. He's purring. Chapter 3, research and state of conservation. What a beautiful photograph. I wonder who took that. It usually says. That is so nice. Oh, I got to get the sun in it. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. The clouds, all the archaeological work, the stabilizing work of these T-pillars here. Yeah, it's beautiful. This is chapter 3. With a research history spanning some 2 decades, Gobekli Tepe is still what can be termed an active archaeological excavation site. Meanwhile, it finds itself more in a transitional phase from a pure excavation site to a heritage site with accompanying conservation and tourism development activities. This chapter gives information on the research project at Gobekli Tepe and outlines past and planned research activities. It then gives an overview of the current state of conservation of the site. Applied Sciences Karlsruhe, Germany, is involved since 2005 in the cooperation focusing on the documentation of the site through 3D scanning, and since 2009, cooperation with McMaster University, Toronto, Canada, is running, comprising the sourcing of obsidian raw material. Wait, providing the sourcing? Compromising the sourcing of obsidian raw material is running, compromising the sourcing of obsidian raw material discovered at Göbekli Tepe. Their source, I'm confused here. Is running, compromising the sourcing of obsidian raw material. How are they sourcing the obsidian raw material from Göbekli Tepe? Am I crazy here? The cooperation focusing on the documentation of the site through 3D scanning. What? I don't understand, but that's okay. I just don't get that part. I must be missing something here. Oh my gosh. Such a long boy. It's okay, I got you. Research and state of conservation. No, we just read that. The global heritage. What? Maybe I don't maybe I can't have a cat with me when I'm doing this. I'm too distracted by the kitty. The Global Heritage Fund, GHF, has supported the research project in areas such as community development and conservation planning, a role that will be increasingly overtaken by Dogus Holding. I think Dogus is the one connected to the WEF, who are now the official sponsors of Gobekli Tepe. Okay, so this is a highlightable area. This is good information. It's not a volcanic area, right? Wouldn't you need that to get obsidian? So these ancient, the sites that I've dealt with have been more recent than this, but it wouldn't be unheard of, even in relatively primitive. I know we don't like that word. I rant about it all the time, but in a non-arbitrary sense, these non-politically complex hunter-gatherers, they like the Algonquins, which where they practice some horticulture, they're who I've studied the most. They were still engaging in very long-term trade. The long-term trade of like what would ostensibly be called Stone Age peoples, their capabilities of long-term trade across the whole world is extremely understated. Eh, What, bro? So there's been a lot more. Go ahead. Ah, hit my face. Is extremely understated. There was a lot more trade. So you see this over water as early as 50,000 years ago on small boats. They have this obsidian trade. In for the Eastern Algonquins, who would trade all the way up into the Great Lakes region, hundreds of miles away for chert. This trade wouldn't have been trade in the sense of bartering, because bartering actually comes out of a culture that is used to money, but there would have been some sort of ceremonial, probably. That's how you usually see it in these early cultures. It's not so much of a direct trade as we would think about it. It's a more complex process that involves giving things to each other, ostensibly not for direct trade, but because of some cultural obligation. However, reciprocity is still expected in these cultures. So, someone can even ask for something of yours in a lot of these earlier cultures, and you're almost obligated to give it, for fear of being considered, in certain places, actually a witch. But regardless, that's a large conversation for another time. The point is, it's not strange that there's obsidian there, is what I'm saying. Long-term trade, or long range trade would have been common. I'm just going to switch my battery, and I'll right here. I don't know why I said be right back. Like, I'm not even moving. Oh man, I am allergic to cats. Why I do this to myself? I love the kitties. Okay, this chapter gives information on the research project at Gobekli Tepe and outlines past and planned research activities. It then gives an overview of the current state of conservation of the site. Hmm, I am not Bubbles. I am Mojo Jojo. Okay. Research project and its participants. Since the death of the previous director, rest in peace, Professor Dr. Klaus Schmidt, that is how it's written, in July 2014, excavations at Gobekli Tepe are directed by the Sandly-Urfa Museum with close support of the German Archaeological Institute, DAI Berlin. The German Archaeological Research Project is coordinated by Dr. Lee Clare and is overseen by an academic advisory board that is comprised of three accomplished Turkish archaeologists, Professor Dr. Mehmed Ozdogan and Dr. That's some Turkish thing, Dr. Nekmi Kurul, University Istanbul, and Professor Dr. Gulriz Kozbey. Additionally, Haran University, Professor Dr. Mehmet Onal is strongly involved in the project through its students who are part of the research team each year. Oops, get rid of that. Change that color there to orange. Interesting. This scientific advisory board has been extraordinarily what's the word? There's a specific word for it. Like, it's been elusive. That's the word. It has been elusive for me. I have no idea what's going on with this scientific advisory board. I cannot find out who's on it. So if anybody has any ideas on that, I haven't really exhausted my ability to find out who's on it, but it has not been easy. It's not been as easy information to find currently. I mean, they're saying who's on it now, but I don't know where to find like a up to date one. Like, I think that, given some rare but black swan event, like, any of these guys could, something could happen to them. They could retire, they could have some deadly illness, they could leave, and then someone else has to be on there. So I'd love to see where, I, I'm shocked that it's not like published publicly somewhere. It just seems weird. I don't think there's anything nefarious about that. I just think it's an underdeveloped web presence for such a important cultural site with immense cultural and touristic value. Another major partner of the research project, responsible for bioarchaeological research, is the Ludwig Maximilians University, Munich, Germany. Furthermore, the University of Applied Sciences, Karlsruhe is involved since 2005. The cooperation, focusing on the documentation of the site through 3D scanning. Did I already read this? Oh my God, I sure did. Did I just go over the same area twice? I really hope not. I don't think I did. No, this is really bad. I hope people are just entertained by how I'm squirrel-brained. Previously, excavation work at Gobekli Tepe was undertaken biannually in spring and autumn each year, each season lasting some 6 to 8 weeks. That is a highlight. Each season lasting some 6 to 8 weeks. Each field campaign included a team of 50 local workers from the nearby village of Orensik and an international team of up to 20 members of scientific/academic staff and students. Currently, however, excavation campaigns have ceased for the duration of construction work on 2 permanent shelters on Gobekli Tepe. Wow. Excavation campaigns have ceased for the duration of construction work. Okay, we're tweeting that. We're tweeting that. Just a quick tweet break. In the 2017 Gobekli Tepe site management plan, it is written that excavation work at Gobekli Tepe was stopped for the duration of construction of the 2 permanent shelters. What am I going to say? Tourism over archaeology. Why isn't it letting me post this? I don't need this one. Tourism over archaeology. What a great tweet that I made. Okay. But that's very interesting. They stopped the excavations. I can't believe it. Furthermore, the next 3-year phase of the DFG research project, 2016 to 2019, will see little or no excavations. This period is dedicated to the evaluation and analysis of so far excavated materials, archaeological features and finds, combined with essential consolidation and conservation work on the monument. The excavation and research activities. Excavation and research at Gobekli Tepe started in 1995 at several spots on the tell: the southeastern peak, the southeastern and southern slopes of the mound, as well as numerous areas of the limestone plateau around the tell. Since 1996, excavation has been concentrated on the southern slope of the mound, which today is designated the main excavation area, or Southeast Hollow. Enclosures A, B, C, and D were discovered here, named in the sequence of their discovery. Enclosure E, situated at the Western Plateau area, was already documented in 1995, but not recognized as the foundations of a monumental building until later on. Enclosures F and G were discovered in the course of excavations undertaken since 2008. Named in sequence of discovery. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of allergic. It does not help that I'm touching my face, actually. I'm allergic to cats, but I love them so much. Enclosures F and G were discovered in the course of excavations undertaken since 2008. Since 2009, two further excavation areas have been initiated in the northwest hollow of the mound, where enclosure H has since been identified. Since 2010, excavation has focused on preparatory works for the erection of a shelter covering the southeast hollow. Since 2013, further preparations were conducted for a second shelter that will protect the northwest hollow. The necessary deep soundings down to the natural limestone bedrock were completed at the end of the spring campaign 2015. Construction work on the permanent shelters is due for completion in late 2016. Okay, so this document was revised in 2017, but it was written in 2014. So I guess they didn't update all of it. And this writing was written for was written contemporaneous to the 2014 version and then not updated for 2017, which is a little bit of an oversight, but it's not a super big deal, I guess. Yeah. Okay, I actually have to wash my face. I'm gonna wash my face and come back in. I am my eyes are closing. I'm very allergic to cats. I shouldn't be doing this. All right. All better. My face gets all red when I wash it, you know, because I'm white. What's up? Sorry, I was leaving for a minute. I had a cat here I had a cat here, and I'm allergic to cats, and my face started feeling weird. So I'm here. Hello, just one more, and nobody here now. How you doing? We're going to continue reading Gobekli Tepe's site management plan, reading the whole thing, stopping for commentary when something's interesting. If something's really interesting, I'm going to stop to post it on Twitter. Those are the rules. I'm easily distracted. All right. Welcome back to Real Archaeology, the document that Flynn Dibble never read. Okay. Well, I assume he didn't read it. Benadryl might be my friend tonight. Yes, I'm taking Benadryl every night when I'm here. I don't have to let the cat into my room, but I want to hang out with the cat, and I don't have my own cat now, so I'm letting it happen. I should probably brush the little Mancoon ass. A lot of fur, a lot of fur. Okay, enough about cats. My dog has more discoveries than Flint Temple. Hell yeah, that dude digs. Your dog being the dude, not Flint Dibble. Okay. Parallel. What a tool. It's not even a good tool. He's like a primitive tool. Flint. Okay. All right. We're good. Parallel to excavation works, research has been conducted in several thematic areas. Scientific research includes, for example, archaeobotanical, anthropological, as well as archaeozoological research. Eh, For okay. Research on the iconographic material is conducted in the framework of the project Our Place in the World. The investigation and conservation of discovered archaeological remains and artifacts is a highly relevant aspect of the research project, and major artifacts are exhibited and or stored in the Museum of San Liurfa. That's the nearby town. From 2016, additional research efforts will be dedicated to the investigation of environmental conditions in the vicinity of the site and landscape archaeological studies. Past and planned excavation and research at Gobekli Tepe is described in a research plan developed by the German Archaeological Institute and covering the time span of 2010 to 2021. Described in a research plan. Where is that? The major aims of the research project at Gobekli Tepe, as stated in the research plan, are as follows. Further investigations of the tell of Gobekli Tepe and its material fabric aims, and its material fabric, that's fabric, yes, 11 years. I don't know where that document is. Material fabric here is referring to like the cultural fabric, not a literal fabric, by the way. Aims to eliminate the full meaning of the place, its architecture and iconography, and the society which built it. Investigations of the archaeofaunal, means like animals. I told her I shouldn't even be saying this. Okay. Um, Investigation of the archaeofaunal and archaeobotanical. That's animal remains relating to archaeology, as in it would be relating to human involvement. So slaughtered or as domesticated animals, the osteology of their bones, whether they were, that can tell us like whether they were pack animals or whether they were slaughtered for food, what their like in terms of domestication, which I don't think it's started yet. You would be able to tell what like where in that process they were, or if they were from like a separate line that wasn't ultimately domesticated, that type of thing. And then archaeobotanical, you can tell like what they were eating, the archaeobotanical remains. A lot of it's like it's not always exact what species it is, or like it's like a group of, it could be a group of species. Um like they could tell that it's wheat, but not specifically what strand of wheat. But that's based on like residue that is left on a knife, like a piece of obsidian that was used to cut, and then they can tell like what materials were being used. This is some of the stuff that's being done on these 50,000, well, maybe not 50 for those, but like these tens of thousands of years old ice age boat building sites. That's what's being used there. So there's lots of information in this. To reconstruct investigation of the archaeofaunal and archaeobotanical remains to reconstruct the former conditions and the anthropogenic use of fauna and flora wildlife. This is a really interesting passage, actually. I want to talk about this a little bit more. The major aims of the research project. So this is an incredible research aim that they have. I think this is really, really great to tell us about the culture of Gobekli Tepe, because if they're taking archaeofaunal and archaeobotanical remains, they're going to learn as much about, and this is like standard stuff. This is not groundbreaking, but it is. They are on the right track, and I commend them for that on this. And I think Lee Clare is the one who leads the research project. So, Dr. Lee Clare, great job. I think this is a fantastic research question. I'm really happy to see the results of this once it comes out. But the archaeofaunal and archaeobotanical remains to reconstruct former conditions and the anthropogenic use of fauna and flora wildlife. So they're trying to reconstruct based on that osteological evidence in the bones, as well as like what the species of animals and plants they were harvesting. I believe they said earlier here that these were non-domesticated versions. That's what they have examples of. But we can see what was being processed and how, possibly, if we have I think this was pre-pottery. I don't know if there's pottery there, but even in the hearths, you can find some of these, especially charred remains, where through archaeobotanical analysis, they can tell certain characteristics depending on the state of conservation, the state of preservation of those charred remains of plant matter. So there's a lot that can be told here. They used archaeobotany to find out about the fortified wine and how there were hallucinogenic substances in these in the containers of wine in either Greek or Roman or maybe both sites of religious significance. So this is really great, cool, groundbreaking stuff. I'm here for the skull cults. Yeah, we got some of that too. I don't know if you saw my appearance on the Nephilim Boys and also Sam Tripoli's tinfoil hat, but I got heavily into the cannibalism for those sites at that time. That's important, as something like wheat could be compared to any other samples around the world and trace the movements, collaborating theories of people, movements, etc. Yes, absolutely. And knowing how humans are interacting with their environment is ultimately at a base, and how humans interacted with their environment changes over time. This is at the base of both archaeology and the foundation of the base of both archaeology and cultural anthropology in a lot of ways. We of course have other we have accounts for cultural anthropology. We have, meeting people of different cultures today is still for cultural anthropology. But if we have these old sites, more and more of this information of what they ate, their motifs, we can never really get perfect with cultural anthropology to reconstruct their culture. There's lots of guesswork involved in something like that, but more and more evidence can build confidence in at least saying certain things about those cultures. And I'm certainly very excited about something like that. As somebody who's interested, what's up, Tammy? Is that Tammy? Tammy. Can't see if it's Tammy or Tommy. I'm dealing with. I need a new contact prescription. But yes, fantastic job, Dr. Lee Clare, with this question you want to answer here. And I'm sure what they're going to show and what they're going to want to know is the changes over Tammy, fantastic. They're going to want to know the changes over time as the people living at Gobekli Tepe change, and they're going to want to look, and the answers to this will be very interesting, looking at how the use of animals, that's the anthropogenic use of fauna and flora, how Florida, fauna and flora, how the use of the animals and plant remains and possibly domestic, how that changes over time as the physical structure and enclosures and use of the site itself changes, and how those are related. So really great stuff they got going on here. Protection and conservation of the archaeological heritage found. Is that supposed to say fund? Protection and conservation of the archaeological heritage found, in particular, erection of shelter structures covering the southeast and northwest hollows. Protection and conservation of the archaeological. Oh, protection. There's an argument for that, surely. It's a bit unfortunate, but it could be worse. I don't know. There's lots of negative things I have to say. So when there's something, when there's something positive I can say, I want to give them that credit as well. And I would say I love that research question a lot. But yes, you're right. Protection and conservation of the archaeological heritage found, the archaeological heritage that they find, in particular, erection of shelter structures covering the southeast and northwest hollows. Okay, I actually feel better about these permanent structures they're discussing if there is an intention behind using them to protect the exposed site, because generally you wouldn't want to be leaving out to the elements these exposed archaeological sites. They are preserved when they're in situ, as in or in situ. I don't know how to pronounce it, but when they're buried, they're protected as long as they're in homeostasis, as long as the conditions around them are not changing. It's possible that some sort of change in the soil composition, which would happen as climatic change happens over time. But in general, without anything introduced into the soil that could then erode different materials, um, like the stone in this case, but it could also be metal. It could also be wood, which is generally not going to preserve as well as stone. But once you have those exposed to the elements, there are many, many materials. Most materials are going to be less preserved when they're exposed to the elements rather than buried in soil. I think pretty much all, but the degree to which the exposure to the elements would damage a certain material is it does depend on that material. But that's good to know. That's written right here that the structures that they've erected are also to protect the sites, and that makes sense because this rain erosion, it's possible that exposure to the air was deemed acceptable as it would take a very long time to actually damage the site, but it's possible that they then also looked, and that could be in this document out also. They then looked and they saw, okay, it's not an acceptable amount of erosion that we would get from exposure to rain. So we want to get these structures up. And that is an acceptable reason for them to delay excavations because it's about preserving the site, what you've already exposed. That's always has to be more important. I would like to see the site excavated, of course. I would love to see that. I don't want, even though fully excavating sites really isn't that standard in archaeology, I would love to see it happen eventually because of the importance. At least have all of the motifs and symbolism and the T pillars exposed, because that's of great value, I think. So I would love to see that eventually, but preservation, conservation has to come first. We don't want to lose the site. The excavation is inherently destructive to the site itself, as in the materials in the ground, but it doesn't have to be destructive to the exposed, the immovable heritage, the stone structures that we have. We don't want to destroy that stuff. We want that protected for as long as humanly possible. All right, back to reading it. Protection and conservation of the archaeological heritage found, in particular, yep. Scientific evaluation of the found material, publication of the results, and presentation to the local, national, and international public and the professional scientific community. Research focuses on the reevaluation of the theme transition from hunter gatherer lifestyle to subsistence based on agriculture and animal husbandry, and on the role of the cultic community of Gobekli Tepe in the earliest domestication of plants and animals. The research plan focuses on the two existing areas, the major excavation areas at the Southeast Hollow, enclosures A to D, and the excavation area at the Northwest Hollow, enclosure H. Excavations will proceed only within the parameters of the scientific research plan and will be concentrated on the structures protected by the planned shelters. The protection allowing delicate microarchaeological investigations. The emphasis is to leave all uncovered features in situ. Oh, just like I was saying. Exceptions are movable artifacts prone to theft. From 2016, additional research efforts will be dedicated to the investigation of recent and prehistoric environmental conditions in the vicinity of the site and landscape archaeological studies, made accessible online. There's a closed parentheses there, but I don't know where the start is. That really threw me off. Huh. Doesn't look like there is. Whatever. No worries. We're all good. For the fines. Oh, wait. I still don't know where the open parentheses is, but I'm supposed to go down this page like this, not go over there. Okay. Sorry, one moment. I did order pizza. Oh, hell yeah, dude. No one out pizzas the hut. Sweet. Thanks.
Yeah. Do you want a paper plate or something?
No,
Instead of doing napkins?
that'd be nice, but I don't need you to get me anything else. Crap. I realize I can't really eat this while I'm reading this. Still got to read. Yeah, this is definitely going to take another video. Oh my God. I'm only on page. I guess I'm talking about it as well, which I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. But then, like, a lot of this stuff is jargon. I don't know how well are you guys understanding this stuff if you're not archaeological professionals in any way or classically trained. Share the pizza. I would, brother. I cannot share all the way to Australia, but I would if I could. Okay, data management, accessibility, and dissemination. Data management, including provision for the accessibility and dissemination of research results, is the responsibility of the DAI. That's the German Archaeological Institute. Here, the management of archaeological information and data sources follows Here, the management of archaeological information and data sources follows strict Turkish statutory regulations and is guided by standards developed by the DAI and executed using its technical infrastructure. The research project at Gobekli Tepe produces a large amount of documentation material, both in digital and analog form. This includes inventories of the site and its components, documentation of archaeological interventions at the site in form of excavation diaries. I wonder if I can see any of this information anywhere. Detailed information on each excavation unit, e.g. in form of plans and maps, as well as drawings of objects, profiles, and other archaeological findings, bioarchaeological finds, find databases for the entire site, photo archives, etc. The majority of this documentation material is stored at DAI headquarters in Berlin, Germany. The digital components of the archaeological record are presently stored on backup servers and external hard drives at DAI headquarters in Berlin, Germany, and at the server of Cologne University, Germany. The research project also uses GIS, that's Geographic Information Systems, to document the site and compile according data. In the long term, a reduced form of the project internal GIS is planned to be made accessible online. For the finds handed over to the Sanliurfa Museum, the museum has its own database for inventorying. The archaeofaunal data are recorded in the standardized program OSSO book that can be accessed online. The data are presently stored on backup servers at the veterinary faculty, not facility, faculty, Ludwig Maximilians University Munich, and the Bavarian Academy of Sciences Munich, Germany. In accordance with the Turkish legal regulations, and the results of the research at Gobekli Tepe are shared with and made accessible to the relevant Turkish authorities. As part of the excavation permit granted by the Turkish authorities, the excavation team prepares annual excavation reports, and the research results are presented at an annual conference about the archaeological work of all foreign archaeological missions in Turkey. Okay, well, that's good. I don't think that's public, unfortunately. All publications are provided to the Directorate General for Cultural Heritage and Museums in Ankara in 5 copies. However, there is the vision that all data of the research project will be digitalized. digitalized. Is this British English again? In the near future, the necessary online infrastructure is currently being developed at the DAI2. I don't understand that distinction between 2 and just DAI. Also, many of the scientific reports are already to be found online. To inform the general public on the research at Gobekli Tepe, the DAI is about to further develop its website and to publish reports on the excavations and scientific results twice annually. As part of the project, Our Place in the World, there is also a database with all relevant data for this project, which is accessible for project partners and in the long-term view, also for the wider public. State of conservation. I have to, excuse me, I have to get off here pretty soon because I have to switch over till 5 till midnight that I do every with my friends Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, which is 1 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time and 5 p.m. West Coast time. Central Time at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. I'll read a little bit more and then I'll go. Yeah. Twice annually. Yeah, I mean, I think this stuff is Turkish government stuff. What I would really like for Gobekli Tepe is to have 3D cameras 24/7, 365 pointing for different angles and have the stones under open skies. It may sound odd, but everyone oriented things based on the sky. 11 a.m. Sydney, Australia. Good to know. Middle of the day for the Aussies. Appreciate that. Well, the thing is, there are archaeological. Well, the sky is different from back then. Like the stars are in different places, so you have to reconstruct that sky as it was then in order to understand what they were looking at, not what we're looking at. And then also I think there is likely, based on the language that I've seen here, we'll see if they talk about it anymore. There is an archaeological preservation reason that they have erected permanent structures to protect the stones. And if that is discussed specifically in this management plan, I'll make sure to make a note of it. I'm planning a video, but it's not like the video is just going to be a full attack. Who's having the live at 8 p.m. Eastern? That is my other show with my friends. It's 5 till midnight. It's about politics. It's way, way different than this. It is not academic. It's like 5 millennial dudes, and we talk about politics and make offensive jokes. And they call me the liberal, and I don't really identify as a liberal, but that should tell you what these guys are like. And we have a lot of really great guests somehow. Yeah, it's not ancient history. It's nothing like this. It's how I unwind. But that is 5 till midnight. That's where I can mess around. Tonight I'm going to pretend to be I do a lot of gaffs on there, and tonight I'm going to pretend to be a Guido or WAP, which are slurs for Italian Americans, not Italians, but Italian Americans. So I'm going to be wearing a leather jacket, and I'm going to be calling everybody Tony. And I don't care what they say. Yeah, my jokes on there work like 10% of the time, but I entertain myself 100% of the time. So we're all good. Back to the state of conservation. So north would have been off by some degree from where it is today. I believe that is the case. Definitely the stars are in different orientations, but I believe that north would have been different. Yes, but I don't know how different because north does move. There's true north and then cylindrical, whatever. Yeah. So state of conservation. Gobekli Tepe has been excavated since 1995. To present, less than 10% of the tell has been partially or fully excavated. So this was from 2017. We're saying less than 10%. Not cool, bro. I mean, it's fine. It's a big area. The major excavation area at the southern slopes cuts into the mound horizontally and vertically, cutting an area of 50 meters by 70 meters, and in parts reaching the bedrock floor with a depth of up to 5 meters. The major excavation, wow. They're excavating down to bedrock. Some hardcore stuff there. The adjacent excavation grid on top of the southwestern mound, covering an area of about 70 meters by 10 meters, have exposed so-called Layer 2 structures. In the northwest part of the tell, there are currently 2 excavation areas. The northern covering an area of 40 meters by 30 meters, the northwest mound, the southern, northwest hollow, and an excavation grid of 40 meters by 20 meters. Given the size of the site and the extent of archaeological remains known to be covered by the tell, intrusive excavation at Gobekli Tepe is kept to a necessary limit in order to investigate, gain knowledge, and understand the history and meaning of the place. The overall topography of the mound, with its characteristic sequence of mounds and hollows, is still intact, thus preserving its characteristic and original form. It's the temporary shelter. So I guess they put this temporary up before the permanent one, even to protect the excavation area. Well, if you're digging and you've exposed dirt from the grass, if you're like in current excavation, not even like after you've excavated to the stone, if you're in current excavation, you really in certain soil consistencies, and there's a whole rating for soil consistency, which is one of the things that you put on a site form when you're recording the information about what you're digging. You're going to record the consistency of that soil and how much sand. I think sand. It's sand, silt, and clay are the 3 consistencies. There's like a 3-pronged thing. But you can't really, some of those consistencies are really susceptible to being like washed away by rain. And then when those artifacts, which will, some of that will just disappear. Like if you're recording little charred pieces of charcoal, that's going to go away if it's exposed to water. I think it's certainly going to be damaged, but things are going to be moved away from their spot, and you're trying to record the exact spot where these artifacts are found that you're finding. So that's important. So I guess they had to cover it. And the permanent structure is meant so that they can keep it open, because a lot of times you would rebury it. I mean, I've reburied sites at the end of field seasons a lot, at different times. The overall topography of the mound with its characteristic sequence of mounds and hollows is still intact, thus preserving its characteristic and original form, after which it is named Potbelly Hill. If it rained, the pits would become swimming pools. Yes, and you lose all that archaeological information, unfortunately. The excavations at Gobekli Tepe, conducted at different areas in different seasons and to different levels, have produced very complex archaeology as well as numerous excavation trenches, both components requiring careful conservation and presentation. Conservation experts of the Global Heritage Fund, GHF, have undertaken conservation assessments since 2011. In 2016, an in-depth assessment was undertaken by the Bureau for Restaurierungsbeurteilung. What the whatever. German language, German stuff. Okay. This work, these documents form part of a concerted action towards producing an urgently needed systematic conservation program for Gobekli Tepe. Oh my God. Conservation experts of the Global Heritage Fund have undertaken conservation assessments since 2011. In 2016, an in-depth assessment was undertaken by whatever that German word is. These documents form part of a concerted action towards producing an urgently needed systematic conservation program for Gobekli Tepe. This work will now be funded by Dogus Holding, Seyhank Initiative, who are now the official sponsors of Gobekli Tepe, in collaboration with the DAI and the Directorate General for the Cultural Heritage and Museums, Ministry of Culture and Tourism. Okay, so what I believe I just read there is them directly saying that the DAI and by association, the DAI is involved in the conservation plan, which, as far as I know, there was a conservation plan from 2011 to 2021. It exists, but in these future documents that are not in the site management plan, but they are in the other documents for Gobekli Tepe, those plans or that conservation plan it was like it didn't exist. I don't think it was like the full plan. It wasn't a comprehensive, like they're saying here, I don't think. A concerted action towards producing urgently needed systematic, not comprehensive, systematic conservation program. Similar but different. Um, but UNESCO was still asking for a conservation plan in 2018 when they were accepted, and they are still today in 2025. The last thing said, the last correspondence from the UNESCO to the states, to Turkey, essentially, not essentially, practically, to Turkey was that they need to have that conservation plan still. They just keep asking and asking every 2 years. DAI is your favorite archaeology journal? Oh, cool. I've probably read stuff from there because I've read some of the accompanying papers, but I wasn't really making the connection with the journal because they do a lot of other research projects. Like the DAI is a large organization. It's just Lee Clare leads the Gobekli Tepe research project, but they have projects everywhere in a bunch of different places. The current situation at Gobekli Tepe is assessed as follows. The identified threats to the well-being and preservation of the excavated areas include a range of factors. Climate conditions are important, producing hot, dry summers and colder, wet winters with limited frosts and almost no snow. High winds occur from time to time, and rainwater tends to accumulate in the hollows and low areas across the site. Threats from freeze and thaw have so far not been a common problem, nor have earthquake or ground tremors. There has been some landslip caused by desiccation and wetting cycles, especially in the winter season. Flora is very limited and has been carefully controlled. Fauna do not appear to have damaged the excavations, though tunneling birds such as bee eaters are a hazard together with some rodents and snakes. Insects do not seem to do damage, but there are occasional areas of masonry bee. The principal damage has been caused by erosion of the ancient mud mortars that bind the stone walls, linking the large, oh, I was talking about, linking the large stone monoliths forming the circular enclosures that characterize the site. These mortars have been eroded, largely by wind, but also by limited freeze-thaw and wet-dry influences. In the earliest excavated walls, the mortar has eroded by 15 to 30 millimeters in depth. To control erosion and other threats to the excavated archaeology, conservation work has been undertaken. The majority of the conservation measures so far have been mainly preventative in character, aiming at ensuring the continuous maintenance of the place. The first aspect of the conservation of the site has been the order and regular cleaning of the archaeologically exposed areas. The site has been very well kept. The first aspect of the conservation of the site has been the order and regular cleaning of the archaeologically exposed areas. The site has been very well kept, and minor landslips, together with other failures, have been addressed to mitigate serious damage. In addition, the erection of shelter structures has ensured preventative conservation of the archaeological remains. Over the years, several shelter structures have been constructed over the research areas, firstly in a modular metal system which has worked sufficiently well. In 2013, a large wooden and felted roof structure was constructed off bedrock foundations in order to better protect the major excavation area and allow better access to the public. This shelter significantly improved the security of the site. It will be replaced by a permanent structure in 2016, one of two planned at the site, which will also provide adequate visitor access along a footbridge, allowing visitors to look down at the archaeology. Another similar shelter is also under construction at Gobekli Tepe's northwest hollow. Looks very nice there. Forget the olive trees. Get Jimmy onto those tunneling birds. Yeah, I'll give him a call. Okay, I gotta go. I gotta go get ready for the other one. but this is going to take several more videos, I think. I never put the time in, or maybe I did. I think I edited it. Any questions before I hop out here? Any questions? Stopped on page, what page did I say? 53. Wow, made no progress. That was 16 pages in 2 hours. Thank you guys. I will be on 5 till midnight live then. They should have just excavated it and sprayed it with acrylic or epoxy. It would be weatherproof and permanent. They're not going to do that. There's a number of reasons why, but yeah, they would be in horror at that suggestion, but I see why you'd bring it up. Thank you very much, everybody. If you come to see 5 till midnight, I'll be there. Yeah. New podcast episode soon. Sweet. All right, bye.